America crippled from within. The Chinese Communist regime has infiltrated every level of the United States, from how we get our food to our education and even our leaders. In this special report, we look at how the communist regime has managed to do that, what's at stake, and what can be done. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. It's been said that economic power is political power. But just how does that translate to China's manufacturing dominance and America's reliance on it? It turns out the Chinese regime's influence reaches all the way from the top levels of government down to the agriculture supplies for a state. Let's begin in Iowa.
They produce 80% of the fertilizer. So here's the thing. The price of fertilizer in Iowa just went up 200% in the last year. So if they have cornered fertilizer, they kind of dominate that sphere of agriculture. That gives them a lot of power to define the market.
That's Iowa State Senator Jim Carlin. But on top of the money involved, there's another risk when China has that much stake.
It means agriculture in our country is shut down without them. You can't, that's a national security issue. You cannot allow yourself to become that vulnerable.
Speaking of vulnerabilities, it's not just fertilizer. China also produces 80% of another critical resource, not just for one state, but globally.
They produce 80% of the world's rare earth minerals, which, now we're talking about electric cars. You can't make electric cars without those. China produces 80% of them. And the issue there, obviously, is if we were to go to electric cars, which the Biden administration has already said half of all vehicles will be electric and by 2030, that would devastate, probably even wipe out Iowa's ethanol industry. And again, if they produce 80% of the rare earth minerals, we're kind of at their mercy. We cannot allow ourselves to be that vulnerable to China.
Making up a set of 17 metallic elements, rare earth is used in everything from batteries to fighter jets, computer hard drives, and as Carlin pointed out, hybrid cars. So what does that global dependence on China mean?
Well, China realizes, and they're right about this, that whatever defines you economically is ultimately going to define you politically.
The U.S. is already working to lessen that economic dependence.
That we can't build a future that's made in America if we ourselves are dependent on China for the materials that power the products of today and tomorrow.
So what's being done? The U.S. Department of Defense recently awarded mining company MP Materials a $35 million contract. That's to build a new processing facility. The funding came on top of the $10 million the Pentagon already gave the company. MP controls the U.S.'s only rare earths mine, but the company still depends on China for processing. The money is going toward a new facility that will be used to process heavy rare earth elements, the first in the country. It's part of Washington's goal to secure supply chains for essential materials, especially those used to make defense gear. But why has the U.S. leaned so heavily on China for processing rare earth? Because the procedure creates a lot of pollution. To address environmental concerns, the White House said it would form a committee to recommend changes to the 1872 mining law. The rule has governed hard rock mining across much of the United States since the 19th century. But it's not just fertilizer and rare earth. China's influence extends to the food and meat industry too.
CCP also owns Smithfield Foods, which is the single largest hog processing or pork processing company in the world. And that's on U.S. soil. And our politicians let that happen. And this country needs to have more self-awareness about the economic domination that China intends over our country, because it is a matter of preserving our freedom.
Chinese company WH Group bought Smithfield in 2013 for a whopping $4.72 billion in cash. Smithfield is the largest U.S. pork company. WH Group also owns Asia's biggest meat processing company. Despite its Chinese ownership, Smithfield's website says it does not and will not import any products from China to the U.S., adding all products are made in America. While concerns are rising over Chinese influence in America, those worries haven't been enough to stem the tide. Ross Kennedy, founder of Fortis Analysis, recently researched the China-based Fufeng Group. The company makes biofermented products derived from corn. They are used in goods ranging from animal feed to pharmaceuticals. Fufeng is now primed to open a factory in North Dakota. So what's the problem? It's slated for construction just 13 miles from the state's Grand Forks Air Force Base, a location Kennedy says may have been specially selected by the Chinese regime for use as a monitoring and surveillance operation. He says there are enormous amounts of data going to and from this location, and when there's direct line of sight to the receiving or transmitting facility, the options get an awful lot better for anyone to begin to create traps for that data.
The analogy I would use is if you're trying to capture data that the United States Air Force is handling, being somewhat close to a major base like that is a bit like putting a cup under a waterfall. A lot of these newer technologies that have begun to emerge over the last few years make it a lot easier to at least capture that data and analyze it, even if it's encrypted. Sometimes just being able to know what direction it's coming from and where it's going to is enough to cause major harm.
On top of data security, Kennedy also brings up another possibility: nefarious actors being able to monitor the physical movement of people, equipment, and aircraft to and from the base.
The main thing about Grand Forks Air Force Base that makes it so attractive if you wanted to potentially cause some disruption to the United States military is the fact that it is a major what's called an ISR, or intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance base. It has our largest wing of Global Hawk Recon drones and is a major installation for the gathering, analyzing, and transmission of critical intelligence.
Despite those issues, the project has been called a historic investment and game changer for farmers. According to Keith Lund of the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation, it's also been dubbed the largest single private capital investment in the region's history. So what's being done about it? That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program on YouTube. That's after being demonetized for a year. Full episodes can be watched on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up for a 14-day free trial, please click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you tomorrow.
Just so inspiring. It makes me want to go dance.
Breathtaking. I was very impressed.
I'm taking my program and I'm going to mention it on the news because I think it's a great performance and people should see it.
What I loved about the show was the authenticity of it. It was taking me on a journey.
Exceptional. The technique involved, that the thousands of hours of training.
People just float. Everything was exact, and then they worked to the exact moment, and it was beautiful.
You go away feeling with a smile in your heart from it.
Have to come. Life-changing.
Make sure you see it. Make sure you see it.
Don't wait. Get your tickets now.